Walt Clyde Frazier. Now, for people who don't know who Clyde Frazier is, this guy, he and Earl Monroe were absolute legends in New York basketball, playing for the champion Knicks teams, last NBA champion Knicks team. And, of course, Clyde Frazier's made a name for himself in business, and he's always been this dude that's not afraid to wear anything suit. He's that guy that will wear any sort of creative suit, even though now some of his suits scream 70s more than 2019. But look, when you're hometown announcer guy and you're legendary guy, sometimes you don't have to show up early and talk to the other team and know what's going on with the other team. So, look, I'll play for you what he said in regards to LeBron James, and I'll tell you why he's wrong, and I'll tell you why he's right. Take a listen.
You're the face of the NBA. I think you should be more a part of your team, folks. No matter what is going on in the public, you got to be a part of the team. Maybe in the locker room, you're not, but you have to exude that type of togetherness in public, folks. And right now, we see he doesn't really care.
He says he doesn't really care. Now, he was commenting on the fact that LeBron James didn't get up during a timeout and was sitting in his throne chair at the very end of the Lakers bench, and he was talking with somebody in the stands. Should be pointed out the person he was talking to in the stands is Tyson Chandler, who also happens to be an LA Laker. And that's a chair that LeBron James sits in, not some of, not most of, every single game. Now, should LeBron get up and at least feign to pay attention? Yeah, sure. But this is something that he has done the entire season. He has sat in that exact same chair. And the only difference is that right now they're not winning, nor are they necessarily trying to win. Although LeBron James didn't play well down the stretch and got his shot blocked by Mario Hezonja. So the first thing is to Walt Clyde Frazier, hey man, when you get there a couple hours for the game, why don't you saunter over to the Lakers bench and say, hey, does LeBron always sit with the team? Does he never sit with the team? Like, what's the deal with LeBron? Give me a little insight. And look, LeBron didn't play well down the stretch. Matter of fact, he shot the ball horribly in the fourth quarter, and the Lakers choked away a lead. And while you can sit here and tell me that the Lakers are better off for lottery position losing that game, everyone knows that when LeBron comes to New York City, he likes to score a ton of points and rub it in Knicks fans. Rub it in their face. He's always liked to do that, and it felt like he went to the well. You know, I've said this before. It's a lot like in Empire Strikes Back when Han Solo goes to hit, the hyperdrive and it's deactivated. Like at some point you're going to go to the well to hit that hyperdrive LeBron James playoff mode and it goes bloop, bloop. And that's what has felt like it's happened. He's looked like a human being. He's looked older. He's looked beatable. And I love how some of my coworkers here at Fox, like Chris Broussard, took him off the list of top 5 players in the NBA. I said not top 10. People scream from the mountaintops. If Broussard says not top 5, that means reality probably not top 10. Because he's been really good for a long time. Now, it doesn't mean that Walt Frazier isn't correct in the fact that LeBron should be more engaged. LeBron should have been a better teammate. LeBron shouldn't have thrown anyone under the bus, and he should have put his arm around Luke Walton at a very early stage in the season and been more engaged when he was injured, much like Rondo was when Rondo was out for a pronounced amount of time because of a hand injury. But he didn't. But let's not use where he sits on the bench and who he's talking to on the bench when he didn't correctly identify the fact that he's talking to Tyson Chandler, who's a member of the Lakers, nor did he actually seem to know that LeBron actually sits there every game. Same spot. Doesn't matter what court, what arena, anything. Sits in the same spot. So LeBron, as a legend, needs to come off of his high horse and probably get up and be more engaged. And, Luke Walton should have challenged him to do so. Hey, dude, get up, get in the huddle like everybody else. But in sitting at the end of the bench and talking to Tyson Chandler, two guys with far more basketball IQ than most anybody else in the NBA has, I don't have as much a problem with it, although optically it looks bad. When you're calling a game, it doesn't take that much effort to go over to the other bench, to talk to some other assistants, to talk to the other broadcast crew, to talk to a couple of players and find out what else is going on. That's not what Clyde Frazier did. He didn't say, hey, I talked to some of those guys and they're like, I don't think LeBron has been a good leader. I don't think it has been a good leader. But and I know he doesn't get up, but it's not that hard to get up. We're not asking all that much. There's this, have you seen studies about people who make their bed every day? How much more likely you are to be successful when you make your bed? Have you guys seen that? There's a ton of studies on this. That if you make your bed, you are exponentially more likely. It reveals a bunch about your personality, but you're more likely to make more money. And making your bed requires a very minimal amount of effort and a minimal amount of discipline, but it says a lot about who you are. Right? That's LeBron James getting up at a timeout. That's LeBron James getting up and dapping up a teammate. That's LeBron James showing true leadership. And instead, guys who don't cover the team normally, and even guys that do, you just sit there and go like, he is checked out. He is disengaged. It feeds into any negative narrative that somebody may have about LeBron James as a person, as a player, and more importantly, as a leader. So I don't think Clyde Frazier is right for saying something about LeBron sitting at the end of the bench, showing he doesn't care. But I don't necessarily think he's all that wrong that LeBron James doesn't care. Let's welcome in Chris Mannix. He joins the show. Mannix, of course, senior NBA writer for Sports Illustrated, and a bunch of things to get to. I actually wanted to start with two big injuries that took place over the weekend, mostly because I feel like we're all kind of locked in on college hoop for the weekend, and we may have missed Malcolm Brogdon being out 6 to 8 weeks. How do you think that affects the team with the best record in the NBA?
Given that it's 6 to 8 weeks and that, if you look at the short end, that'll get them back in time for the second round of the playoffs. I don't know how significant it is. If it's even longer and you get to the second round, which we know in the Eastern Conference is going to be a dogfight, it's significant. I mean, Malcolm Brogdon has been terrific, either as a one or kind of a combo two with that team. His numbers across the board have been up, and he's just been a big part of their team's success. So, they have to kind of cross their fingers and hope that it's on the short end of that 6 to 8 week timetable.
Again, so how does that affect their team, though? How important is he to who they are and what they do?
I mean, he's pretty important, given that his place in the starting lineup, in the rotation. Defensively, they've been a lot better this year. I think Malcolm Brogdon has had a pretty big role in that. I mean, they've been kind of a switch-happy type of defense under Mike Budenholzer that's maximized the length on that team. These are all kind of attributes that Malcolm Brogdon has. And without him, you deplete that bench by moving somebody else into that starting lineup, and you rely on guys you wouldn't. So, yeah, I mean, it's significant. I just don't know. I don't want to read too much into it until we see how deep into the playoffs they get without Malcolm Brogdon, because if they can go through the first round. I mean, the bottom three in the Eastern Conference playoff bracket, I don't know how big a threat they are, whether it's Brooklyn, Detroit, Miami even. I just think you can win a series against any of those three teams without Malcolm Brogdon. Second round, you might have more trouble.
Doug Gottlieb Show here on Fox Sports Radio. All right, what about C.J. McCollum's knee injury?
I mean, when you got the news that it was only going to be a week or so until he's reevaluated and it wasn't as significant as it kind of looked on first glance, you had to breathe a huge sigh of relief if you're Portland. I mean, you can't underscore, Doug, how much is at stake for the Blazers in this year's playoffs. I mean, they have to win at least in the first round, maybe more, in order to keep that team together. this McCollum, Damian Lillard, I guess Yusuf Nurkic, throw him in that group. This mix has accomplished nothing in the playoffs in recent memory, and they've had some tough fights and all that. But getting swept by New Orleans last year was a bad look, and if they have a similar out in this year's playoffs, I think something significant happens there. So CJ being healthy, I mean, that at least gives them a chance at making some noise in the postseason. Without him, they were ripe for a first-round beating.
Doug Gottlieb Show here on Fox Sports Radio. Clyde Frazier got into LeBron and said he doesn't care. Now, some of that is the visual of him sitting at the end of the bench. And I pointed out that, look, if you actually ask anybody with the Lakers, he always sits in that chair. But
right.
he doesn't get up for timeouts. He doesn't look completely engaged in what the team is doing. How much of what Clyde's saying is the general thought of people in the NBA?
I've had a couple of conversations about this with people around the league. It's reading a little bit too much into it. I mean, the Lakers this year have been, the kings of bad optics, from start to finish, whether it was LeBron here, Rondo there. The body language on some of the players throughout the year hasn't been great. But this seems to be, much ado about nothing. I mean, what do you want the guy to be? Rah-rah in the huddle for all 48 minutes of every single game during the year. And as you point out, he's done this, before, during the season. I do think there's something to, the division in the locker room in some ways being LeBron James infused. I do believe that there are players in that locker room that look at LeBron because of the Anthony Davis stuff and think this guy wanted us out of there. Putting a pretty easy, connection to make is the LeBron, his agent and AD, putting all that together. I think there are players in that locker room that have been demoralized by that. So if you want to, critique him for that and whatever his role was in that's fair game. But just the whole bench thing, that given that he's done it a bunch of times before, that seems to be a bit of a stretch to me.
Doug Gottlieb Show here on Fox Sports Radio. Okay, let's get to how the Lakers intend on fixing it. Pretty obvious that Luke goes. Who becomes the next head coach?
Well, I mean, a lot of people expect it to be Tyronn Lue. Tyronn would never make a move on Luke's job before there was some resolution of that. That's just the nature of their relationship. They're really tight. But if that became available, I would think he'd be a strong candidate. I've heard the name Mark Jackson bandied about, but I can't believe that Rob Pelinka would go in that direction. Other than that, I'm not exactly sure who would be on the top of the list. I mean, Ty Lue makes some sense because of the relationship with LeBron, but I think the bigger problem than the coach is how do they avoid coming back in October with largely this same roster with a new group of mercenaries swapped in there. I mean, how do they avoid it? I mean, there are people that in LA and inside LeBron's circle that believe that they're going to get Anthony Davis. I'm not as convinced, but they believe it. So if they get that, if that happens, then okay, they're trending in the right direction. But if it goes a different way, I mean, I don't know how you can bring this whole group back and expect them to have significantly different results. So I think that's a bigger question than who becomes the next head coach.
No, but I was going to get to that. The coach goes, then the players. Yeah. Okay, so what's the plan B? Because Anthony Davis may take you trading away some of these younger pieces. I'm interested in who else they would add, but I'm also interested in what is the plan B. Is Kawhi even a possibility?
I'm skeptical. And because, I mean, I spent some time on this story in December, January, when I was writing a profile in Kawhi for SI, and the strong belief I got was that it's a Toronto Clippers thing. I think he'll take other meetings, and the Lakers might be on that list, the Knicks might be on that list, but I think ultimately it's going to come down to those two teams, with the outcome of this season, of course, having an impact. But, you go down the list. I mean, LeBron mentioned this after the Knicks game, the number of free agents that are out there and their chances of getting them. I don't know who they're a front runner for. I don't think they're a front runner for Durant. I don't think they're a front runner for Kawhi. I guess you could overpay Jimmy Butler if the Sixers get a little, nervous about Jimmy and the back end of that contract. But does that make you a measurably better team in the postseason? With Jimmy Butler, I don't know. I mean, I think they've got real problems here, Doug. I mean, look, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but Jeff Van Gundy made that comment about exploring a trade for LeBron. I don't think that's the dumbest idea. I really don't.
Yeah,
he has the most valuable. He has the most valuable contract in the NBA.
You can't trade him.
Why?
Because he won't show up. Except, is he going to go play for the Knicks?
Would he go play for Denver?
No. LeBron
Denver
James
was a competitor.
LeBron James is not going to Denver.
You know, I wrote this last year, Doug. The Nuggets were frantically trying to get a meeting with LeBron before he made the decision to go to L.A. They knew it was likely he'd turn them down, but Tim Connelly in that front office was desperately trying to make a deal for LeBron. If they go out in the second round in Denver, I bet they make another run at it. I
understand, but he's not going to show up to work at Denver. Like, he doesn't have a no-trade clause. He doesn't have a – no.
You think he retires? You think he retires?
No, I just think he thinks, I just moved my kids out to L.A. You guys fix it. You guys want me out of here? You guys fix it. I'm not moving. Like, this is the reality of it. Like, he's not moving to like this. I love you, and again, hypothetically, theoretically, it makes a ton of sense, right? You deal him, you get a bunch of players, he gets a shot at the title playing, but he ain't moving to Denver, Colorado after moving from Cleveland to. Right? Like Antonio Brown told us everything we need to know about star players. They're going to go wherever the hell they want to go, especially LeBron James. It's the same. It's actually players are more powerful, and LeBron is more powerful in this sport. He's not moving to.
No, but the threat of retiring is far more realistic in the NFL than it is in the NBA. Just is.
He's not showing up to work in Denver, Colorado.
He's
literally worth $1 billion. He's not going to. So you didn't move your whole operation to Los Angeles to be here 9 months, and then somebody go like, "Hey, you're going to go, huh?"
Okay, but if you get to August and they are not able to make a significant move, do you see a clear path for how they win with this guy? Like how in the next 2 or 3 years while he's still playing at a reasonably high level?
No, but again, that's not LeBron's. Like even that wouldn't make him want to leave. Like. He would just say, you guys fix it. That's all. You guys figure it out. I'm showing up to work. I'm going to go make my shows and my movies. You know, I'm not going to sit here and be the bad guy because I went to 8 straight finals and won 3 NBA championships. Like, I think the reality of it is, like, again, on paper, Denver, sure. It was like people said, like, well, what about him in Portland with all those shooters? Sure, but it ain't happening. You know, like New York would be the only other, Clippers or New York are the only other 2 places, and I honestly think the Clippers think they're going to be better off if they don't have him, and I kind of think the Knicks do too. And I don't think he wants to work for Jim Dolan.
I don't disagree anyway because I don't see Magic Johnson ever doing that, even entertaining that possibility. I'm just saying, like, from a basketball position, trying to pull something like that off makes a lot of sense. It just does because I don't think they're going anywhere. If they can't get Anthony Davis, and let's say that the worst case scenario for the Lakers happens, which is Kyrie takes the money and goes back to Boston, they make a run the playoffs, and then the Celtics, then it doesn't matter what Anthony Davis says because the Celtics will go all in to get him no matter what and say we'll run the risk that you'll walk in 2020. Like, what do you do? I think that sets up a worst case scenario of a degrading LeBron James on a team that at best is like a 7 seed or a 6 seed in the Western Conference playoffs, going forward.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I mean, look, there's Kemba Walker. There's some other guys out there. Maybe you make a.
Yeah, but Charlotte. I don't think Charlotte's going to nickel and dime Kemba Walker. He likes it there. I mean, I think that's. I did that. You're right. There's a lot of free agents this summer, but you go to 2020, and if you take Anthony Davis off the table, who's the best free agent? Like Draymond Green? I think he's the best unrestricted guy of that group. You get a lot of restricted players; they don't go anywhere. So, I mean, you're just looking down the barrel of a really tough few years if you get to August and you haven't done anything of significance.
Doug Gottlieb Show here on Fox Sports Radio. That's the voice of one Chris Mannix. All right, Mannix, couple other things I want to run by you. What's the state of the Celtics, a team that has been kind of all over the map?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers suggest that they're playing better, and offensively they are, but Sacramento gave them a scare at home. They couldn't put Atlanta away on Saturday. They've got Denver tonight. They're doing it without Gordon Hayward. So if they put together a complete game, that'll be Denver and Golden State that they've knocked off in the last couple of weeks. And I think you can interpret something from that. But their defense has been lousy. They're giving up a lot of points in a lot of quarters, like just getting gashed for those like 36, 38-point quarters, which has been kind of a bit of an Achilles heel for them all season long. The good news is that, the Jaylen Browns of the world have really settled into their roles, which is something that we didn't see much of this year. And Kyrie is back to playing at a pretty high level, but they've got to start to step it up defensively. They're just not they're not a very good defensive team right now, whereas that's been the hallmark of them for most of the last few seasons.
The Warriors won a couple games without Kevin Durant, which, of course, is like when the Celtics win a couple games without Kyrie. People start to go, well, are they better off without? But what do we make of the Warriors playing well without Kevin Durant?
I mean, I look at it as a DeMarcus Cousins thing, don't you? I mean,
yeah,
I look
he
at
played.
the Warriors
He played much better. He finally played well, and then of course now he has an MRI after playing well for 2 games.
But their only vulnerability to me is Cousins, because they're going to have to play him, 15, 20 minutes at least, and probably more than that in the postseason to keep him kind of happy. We'll see what he can do in the fourth quarter. But he is, I mean, you've looked at games like against Boston, against Houston the first time around, and he just gets cooked on those pick and rolls. Like they target him every time he's in the game. Then you have a game like, the last week against the Rockets where he's, looking like, close to DeMarcus Cousins of old. He's passing like the elite passer that he is in his position. He's blocking shots, taking charges. If they get that DeMarcus Cousins, everything's good in Golden State land. I'm not worried about the Durants and Currys and even Draymond Green, who's miserable from beyond the 3-point line this year. I mean, I'm not too worried about him being a liability. Cousins is the only guy that could be a liability, and if you have to play him 25 minutes to keep him happy in the postseason, that's something that bears watching.
That's the voice of Chris Mannix. Mannix, last thing, Russell Westbrook, I like him, and I don't know if I like him. I respect him, and I do like the fact that he's helped Paul George have an incredible season. And I don't blame him for how upset he was at what happened in Utah. But, I mean, between the way he handles the media, the way he handles the press, the way he handles opposing fans, I get it, but I'm kind of over it. Am I overreacting to what I see?
I think he, not the Utah stuff, though you can make an argument that he certainly overreacted by, threatening the man's wife, whatever it was that she said. The media stuff, this stems from, 10 years ago with Russ. I mean, he's never gotten over the fact that everybody, doubted his ability to be an NBA point guard. And, you get to the finals that first year, Magic Johnson is calling him the worst point guard or whoever played in the finals or had one of the worst performances. Everything that's been said about him in the past sticks with him, and that's created the persona that he is today. I've always had a soft spot for Westbrook because, to me, Westbrook is doing something now that no NBA player is ever going to do again. There's never going to be an NBA player that averages a triple-double for 3 straight seasons. They're just not. Like, Ben Simmons might do it once, and a handful of other guys might pull it off once, even twice. Nobody's ever going to do it 3 straight times. This is the most untouchable mark in NBA history. There's going to be a player, Doug, that scores 100 points in a game before there's somebody that averages a triple-double for 3 straight seasons. And, I don't think he gets enough credit for playing like that. Certainly there are some flaws in his game. When he goes hero ball and you see him with a stat line of 1 for 14 through 3 quarters, you question the shot selection. But, man, this guy's doing something just unprecedented. It's a lot of fun to watch him out there at times.
Awesome stuff. Chris Mannix. Mannix, thanks so much for joining us.